Well, in the aftermath of a very, very questionable Royal Rumble, after all the excitement that we've been through, it's time to talk about what on earth happened this past Saturday. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Under the Middle Rope. It is episode 65, and I think I said that in the wrong order. I'm Jose Taboada. Yeah, that was something. That was a Royal Rumble this past Saturday. Again, all the excitement that we all had kind of just went up into smokes right away. So in saying that, I don't want to waste too much time at all. I'm going to bring in the guys, only two of the guys that were able to join us, RJ Stacy and Pete Atkinson. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, I feel like the Royal Rumble kind of was a bit of a letdown, but
Yeah,
in general, I'm pretty good.
that's good, Pete.
Yep, kind of agree.
Yeah, it's. I
Red
mean,
flag.
we had so much excitement for it, and like I said, we don't want to waste any time because I feel like there's going to be a lot of ground to cover in terms of like thoughts and processes. Of course, now the road to WrestleMania is underway, 57 days away from the big weekend in Arlington, Texas. But and then again, a questionable start to the road to WrestleMania. And again, before we get to the Rumble, before we break down at least the more important things, we're not going to talk about the mixed tag team match because we kind of expected Edge and Beth to win, except for Wolf. And we're not going to talk about the women's match because we all expected Becky to win. And at the same time, we were also kind of worried, at least I was worried about the WrestleMania sign on fire that I couldn't focus on the women's match. But in saying that, let's get straight to it. The results of the prediction, and I showed the guys earlier, so they know the results. But my goodness, this was closer than we all thought. And literally, in true Royal Rumble fashion, it was all about the luck of the draw. Nick becomes your new Under the Middle Rope champion, potentially the final one if he retains at WrestleMania. Like I said, we are closing the pod in April, and he goes into Mania as champ. And my goodness, Nick. First of all, Ronda's return was exciting. We're going to talk about that soon. But Nick getting saved, I think, by having the number 30 slot in the men's Royal Rumble draw from the roulette a few weeks back. We didn't need to go to the tiebreaker because, again, that number 30 spot sealed it for Nick. And then meanwhile, somehow the rest of us tied it at 3 in some shape or form. Gentlemen, thoughts on this?
I think that numbers draw was rigged as shit.
I agree.
I had the 25, 27, and 29 in the women's rumble. I was like, I must have a decent chance of someone good. They turned into Sarah Logan, Molly Holly, and Shotzi Blackheart, who were in the rumble for a combined less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's rough.
Now, of course, I ended up having the number 28 pick in Ronda Rousey winning the Rumble again. I wish she was 30, though. I do wish she was 30 because that was a big enough return. Of course, that would have went to RJ had Ronda come out at 30. But that's what saved me, and I guess someone kept me in it until the men's Royal Rumble match. But yeah, Nick, Pete, and Wolf, they all got Ronda correct. RJ and I were hoping for a Bianca back-to-back. That didn't happen at all. So let's just get right to it. We're gonna talk about. Let's talk about the first. Think about the first opening match: Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, the Universal Championship. Rollins hilariously trolling Roman with the Shield gear entrance again from the crowd, which I loved. I thought that was great. I'm like, holy smokes, we have the Shield. We have Shield Seth again. Decent match. It ended in a chokeout disqualification when Roman Reigns wouldn't let go of the 5 count, holding Seth, in that chokehold. And again, that gave Seth the win, which of course, but Roman does retain because you cannot lose your championship on a disqualification or count out. RJ, let's start with you with your thoughts on the match.
The match was actually pretty good, in my opinion. I think it was the match of the night pretty clearly, and I think that that's probably a consensus around the majority. But I guess we'll get to hear your thoughts. I thought the match was pretty good. I didn't hate the finish as much as I think most people did. I think it shows that Roman still can't beat Seth. It keeps Seth looking fairly strong if they're not going to put the belt on him. But at the same time, if he doesn't get put into a feud with Roman and Brock now, it kind of feels like, why did they do that and why they have the feud in the first place? So if they kind of don't continue the story, then now I kind of hate it. But if they do continue the story with Steph kind of getting involved, Seth getting involved with Roman and Brock, then
Seth Rollins.
Yeah. then then I don't like it anymore. But I didn't hate it quite as much as I think most people did. But I thought the match in general was pretty solid.
Pete,
Yeah, and I will also say that the Shield entrance, I think, was probably the best point of this show. And I think it was
Yeah.
started off really well and pretty much went downhill after that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Rollins as in this character where he is. I love that he was almost somewhat a face here, but was still very clearly a dickhead. Like, he was still playing the heel tendencies. He was still cocky arsehole Rollins, but was still playing the face. And I love that kind of little intricacy there. Match was fantastic. Unsurprisingly, fantastic chemistry between them. I still love that spear into the pedigree spot every time I see it. I think it looks better. But I thought the ending sucked. And not just because it was a DQ, it's more, I don't think they're going to do Rollins. If this was building to Seth versus Roman at Mania, I would not hate it. But they're very clearly building to Roman versus Brock at Mania. And therefore I hate it. If that makes some kind of sense. It's
For
because
sure.
I feel like this is the end of it. And I don't like DQ finishes on big pay-per-views. They never sit well with me. And I like the story. And another tiny minor gripe here, but kind of important in the finish. He only was able to grab the rope because the ref did the lift the hand, drop it thing. I hate that they're so inconsistent with that. I think that is actually the first time a Reigns opponent they've done that with and not just declared them knocked out. They usually just say, yeah, ring the bell, he's knocked out.
it's over. Yeah.
But for once, they decided they need to do the hand thing so you can grab the rope. And that's... I don't like minor inconsistencies and flawed logic like that. So it's a minor thing. In terms... the match was a great match. It was, as you said, comfortably match of the night. But yeah, didn't like the ending. So...
I was okay with the ending. Again, obviously the mindset, obviously, throughout the show, one of our obviously the mindset starts to go to, okay, what match placement are we gonna have for the Rumble, and will that have any lasting impact? Because again, we were thinking, okay, well, if Brock goes first and he loses, then he's gonna get into the Rumble. But if Roman goes late, or if Roman goes first, then maybe Roman's going to lose it so he can rest up, enter the Rumble. So that was where my mindset was. Obviously, the DQ finish and then Roman retaining, I told myself, okay, Seth doesn't get pinned, avoids the whole, keeping strong, and Roman keeps the title. That's fine. So I told myself, okay, that's good. All right, Roman retains. So then maybe the men's Rumble can be next, because we were talking about what if the women should close the night with the anticipated return of Ronda. I'm like, sure, I think they'll be fine. And then the women's comes on next. So again, we'll talk about the women's Rumble later, because I think the next talking point is absolutely Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley. Brock Lesnar, I think this is his shortest WWE Championship reign in his career, losing to Lashley after Roman interfered, after the ref was knocked down with an F5. After Roman interfered, Heyman once again rejoins Roman Reigns after he handed in the title to knock out Brock, and here we are now, which of course sets up Brock entering the Royal Rumble match at number 30. Damn it, disappointing. I thought the match was fine, but it's just so disappointing. As soon as the ending was happening, then you knew what was coming, because the men's Rumble was you had the mixed tag match, and then the Rumble was going to be right after eventually. So I told myself, well, there goes the night, because you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, but it's just, I mean, I will say though, I think in terms of long-term booking or whatever, this kind of is one of the better stories. I just hate that they're using the Rumbles when it should be for somebody else. But again, we'll talk about the Rumbles when we get there. Pete, your thoughts on the WWE Championship match?
In terms of the match itself, it was a good match. It was a very, very, very Brock Lesnar match. Drew exact parallels to his matches like Goldberg, his matches with Samoa Joe, his matches with Braun Strowman. They're all this type of style of match. Please stop dropping people on the head in German suplexes. That's one thing I would like to ask, because those were horrific to look at, especially some of the later ones on Lashley. And the one on Brock was bad, and some of the later ones on Lashley were dreadful to see. I like the Heyman stuff going on, but in terms of long-term booking now, I hate it. It's completely turned on ahead, not because of this match, but because of the show as a whole. Because the two big issues here is we knew what it meant for the Rumble afterwards, and that sucked the life out of this feud and the enjoyment out of the feud completely away, because now I kind of was enjoying Lesnar, and now I hate what Lesnar is because he ruins things. Same when he won Money in the Bank, like a while back. It doesn't need it. It doesn't need to win a Rumble. He had a fully valid reason for a rematch against both Lashley and Reigns, because he never got his match against Reigns in the first place, so which he's meant to have a day one. So he had a valid reason for that match, and he got screwed out of the title against Lashley, so he had a valid reason for that match. So either way you went, there's no reason he couldn't be in a title match. So what the hell are we doing? And discuss more about the Rumble. But my other second big issue is Roman, Heyman, and Brock were the three talking points coming out of this match. I completely forgot that Lashley won the belt.
Yeah.
Nobody is talking about the fact that Lashley has won the title back and is completely overshadowed by everything else that's happening. And no one really cares that Lashley is the world champ again. And your top champion, with probably the historically most prestigious belt on your show, shouldn't really be an afterthought. So
I mean, this is Lashley's second reign within the year. Winning his first reign against the Miz last February. So almost a year, literally almost a year. But it's funny. I mean, I didn't even make that note myself until Pete said it. Yeah, Lashley was an afterthought, and that's a problem. That is a big problem. RJ, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, everybody except for Brock and Roman are afterthoughts at the end of the day in the show right now. And that's a problem as well. Like, and sticking to just this match in general, I completely agree with Pete. Like, you just completely forget and don't even care that Lashley's the champion. And they even addressed that on Raw the next night, where Brock, like, I don't want to say he redeemed himself. Brock did have a really good segment to open the show, and he literally says, like, you didn't beat me. But that's all he had to do without winning the Rumble, which I know we'll get to. He easily could have just came out on Raw the next day and did exactly what he did without actually being the winner of the Royal Rumble. So we can get to that when we get to that. But you completely forget that Lashley's the champion, even though the match is solid, even though they do that exact same spear into the barricade spot every single time there's a Brock big man match. But match is fine, just like Pete said, it's pretty much carbon copy of every single Brock big man match that there is. Finish is terrible because you see it coming and you know exactly what it means. And I picked Brock to win this match. I feel like that was more, I think, doing my voting, I picked more with my heart and less with what I actually thought was going to happen. Because as soon as this happened, you knew exactly what was the case for the rest of the show and pretty much for the build for the rest of the next 2 months. So yeah, I hated that. It just completely turns you off of the rest of the show and the rest of the match.
And you know what? We're going to get straight to it right now. We're going to talk about we're just going to carry on right into it. The Dirty Man Men's Royal Rumble match. Of course, the winner earning a championship opportunity at WrestleMania. And like we've said it already, Brock Lesnar enters at number 30 to win his second Royal Rumble match, his first since his debut Rumble in 2003. And if I'm not mistaken, if we need to play a little by the numbers game here, Brock Lesnar winning at 30, that at that spot at number 30, that now means that the number 30 spot now has the same amount of winners as the number 27, which, you know what, in hindsight, when you think about the Rumble as a whole and individuals coming out every 90 seconds, kind of makes sense that number 30 finally at least is on par with the most amount of winners because it's the most freshest man. But yes, number 30 wins the Rumble. Of course, the first three number 30 winners being Taker, Cena, and Triple H. So Brock Lesnar joins that group. And of course, I gotta say there were a lot of questionable, aside from the storyline aspect, which we'll get to. Like what I was saying earlier to these guys off camera, Raw feels like it got shot in the foot because there is now nothing for Raw leading up into the WrestleMania build. In fact, like this past Monday on Raw, the quote unquote Raw build is still dealing with Lesnar, who's going to now enter the Elimination Chamber match in Saudi next month for the WWE Championship because Brock Lesnar wants a title for title match, which would be the first time since WrestleMania 6 if that was to be a thing. But so again, a lot of questionable moments in the Rumble, aside from Raw not getting any opportunity. Madcap Moss eliminating AJ was an absolute travesty. Drew McIntyre, who we all thought was going to be injured until March, suddenly makes his return way shorter than everybody anticipated. Kofi Kingston, God bless his soul for completely bought. I hope it was. I kind of hope it wasn't a botch because the look on Kofi's face after he tried to jump from the ring to land on the barricade, his face kind of said, "Damn it." His face kind of said, "Oh no." I don't know, but like it did
it was
not look pretty.
100% a botch. It's the issue with Kofi. That I'm amazed it's taken this long based on some of the ones he's actually done. Like if you think of like the WrestleMania Battle Royal one where he flipped over the rope and landed with his feet on the ring step.
I agree.
There are some insane spots he's done. And to be honest, I think this was just almost a spot too far. Like when you actually look at the schematics of what he was trying to do and
it's ugly.
springboarding off and landing on something like that wide.
And with no grip, because I guess you could say it's somewhat grip.
It was near impossible spot. If he'd pulled that off, it would have been ridiculous. It's just the issue of trying to one up yourself every single year and running out of things to do.
Yeah.
There's only so many things you can do.
Yeah, so Kofi accidentally eliminates himself on that front. Shane McMahon coming out at number 28. Everybody's favorite, the best in the world. Johnny Knoxville, not bad. At number 9, big crowd, big pop from the crowd. Getting his ass kicked, took a frog splash pretty well, and a kick to the face. Of course, don't forget he also attacked AJ. And last but not least, in my opinion, the shining point of the Royal Rumble, which is not a good thing to say when you're talking about this guy. But then again, I kind of hope he drops music and joins the WWE and turns up Bad Bunny. I want more of the Bunny. I want this Bunny more in my life. Bad Bunny is like, if he didn't solidify himself as the best celebrity wrestler of all time, now he's an instant Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Bad Bunny's great.
Get it?
What?
I just don't get it.
I don't get it either. But the Panama.
I don't get how hyped you are for Bad Bunny. I'm just.
I know, because it's because again, like you hear the word celebrity in wrestling, you're like, it's not gonna go well. You can tell that Bad Bunny wants to put in effort. He makes it count. The guy can sell. He sold the Stunner. He sold the F5. He can still do a Canadian Destroyer with the help of Riddle. The man can do it all. And of course, Bad Bunny actually was in the final.
That's the problem, though. That's the problem.
Final four. No, sorry. No, Pete is right. Bad Bunny was in the final 4. Shane McMahon in the final 3. And then of course, Brock Lesnar eliminating Drew McIntyre to set the WrestleMania sign on fire again. RJ, let's start with you with your thoughts on the Rumble after everything that I just said.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Bad Bunny too, and I think that I appreciate how actually impressive he is for being a non-wrestler, but why is he getting treated better than actual wrestlers and being in the final 4 and being the only person on your show that can do a Canadian Destroyer? Like,
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying I love the Bunny. I want more Bunny.
Yeah, I like him too, but I mean, he could have taken the F5 and not been in the final 4. Like that's the problem to me, that he gets treated better than people that are fan favorites and much more, actual wrestlers. You know what I mean? I think that's the problem. I like Bad Bunny. I don't care if he has a match at WrestleMania because he'll probably show out well in it again. But Shane McMahon and Bad Bunny being in your final 4 is a problem in my opinion. But other than that, do we have an official time on this Rumble?
Yes, per the beautiful time of Wikipedia, it is 51:10.
Okay. This Rumble felt so rushed in my opinion. Like, there is absolutely no spots that are memorable. You were getting people just unceremoniously dumped out by Madcap Moss. You had it reminded me almost like a garbage version of when Kane and Big Show were just dumping people out years ago, which is Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss just throwing out pretty much everybody like AJ. And then Shane McMahon comes in and throws out Kevin Owens. You don't even see Finn Balor and Cesaro in the match. I mean, it was rushed. There was no really memorable spots at all. And then it was predictable because Brock comes out and just cleans house. And everybody looked weak as soon as Brock got in the match. Drew didn't look strong in the final 2. And there was no fun surprises other than Drew, who, if you are a casual fan and you watch pay-per-views, you might not even have known Drew McIntyre was out until March.
Was out, yeah.
So Shane McMahon is the big return. Like, it was a swing and a miss. Like, it wasn't a fun Rumble match at all, in my opinion.
Pete.
Yeah, so when the first 2 came out and it was Styles and Nakamura, I was like, maybe I'm wrong. and maybe this is going to be a fantastic Rumble. And then, admittedly, Austin Theory came out, and that was pretty good as well. Those three, as well. Then nothing happened for 18 entries. And I genuinely mean that. It is just the complete mid-card and tag team barrage of entries between number 4 and number 20. I think it was 16 out of 18 of those entries were in a tag team. And the other two, I think, were Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn. So make of that what you will. You have AJ Styles, who's most people's hope to win or wanting to win, dumped mid-match by freaking Madcap Moss. And yeah, I wouldn't have even mind if he'd gotten if AJ Styles in the final 4 and lost. Fine, he's there for 50 minutes. You're giving him a fantastic showing. Great. No, just anybody else, because then that just completely deflated the crowd. So when Drew returned, the crowd were like, "Oh yay, it's Drew," but they were so down at that point. You could have brought out Steve Austin, and there probably would have been a half-assed reaction based on how deflated the crowd were. That Kofi Swatter says, "Unfortunate, you have," but then Big E is casually dumped by RK Bro.
Off camera,
After nothing.
almost, basically.
Yeah, it was just in the background, of happening. Bad Bunny is fine, but he got 2 eliminations, which is more than 90% of the people in the Rumble. And he shouldn't be doing that and getting to Final 4. You got Shane McMahon comes out and immediately eliminates Kevin Owens, which is a great reward for Kevin Owens for signing back with WWE, being loyal to them and all that kind of stuff. So you have Bad Bunny, Shane McMahon, and Brock Lesnar in a Final 4, which is just crap. Orton got your biggest pop of the night by a mile, which, yeah, hometown and stuff.
Default, yeah, by default,
dumped.
cheap pop.
And you have no intrigue at the end. Lesnar came out. There was 6 people left when Lesnar came out. It took him 2 minutes to win that Rumble. From entering the ring to eliminating everyone was 2 minutes. So no intrigue whatsoever, no kind of suspense, no back and forth. And I can't find a single positive thing in this Rumble or that was set up in this Rumble that I'm intrigued about going forward. All the favorites in the Rumble for me, Owens, Big E, Drew, Styles and stuff, just stepped aside to make room for Shane McMahon, Bad Bunny, Baron Corbin, Madcap Moss. It's a steaming turd of a Rumble. It's got to be in the bottom 3 Rumbles of all time for me. And
there's storylines that didn't even get touched on either. I think whichever Mysterio came out first was dumped before the other one came out. Dominic was out and then gets dumped before Ray even comes out. What's going on here?
You could have had a nice interaction with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Could have had another interaction again. There's
it just felt rushed.
Not a lot happening in this Rumble. There's nothing going on. And if you want to make your casual fans interested again, this is not the way to do it. And I'm not interested in anything set up for Mania at this point. Brock versus Roman just hit a 40-foot high speed bump, in my opinion. And I'm probably not going to get past it. Lashley is fine. Drew returning is nice, but nothing was set up. The Rousey's probably going to fight Charlotte, and I don't give a crap about that match because both should be heels. And most of my favorite wrestlers are now left to the side again. And you start to look down that actual card and see who's challenged for those titles in the last 12 months or so. They're all back in the mid card. Kevin Owens eliminated by Shane McMahon. Jey Uso not on the card. Cesaro's not on the card. Finn Balor not on the card. Big E back to obscurity again. AJ Styles is doing nothing. He lost to Omos as part of that feud. Every person that I want to root for in WWE is basically getting pushed aside for more of the same again. And I was trying to ask myself, 2016, 2017, when you had Reigns and Lesnar and Charlotte, Becky and stuff in the main event, who is actually in a better position now in WWE than they were back then? And I think you're probably only looking at Drew, who was still way more over 2 years ago, and Lashley. And that is probably the only two who are now treated better.
Probably
Bianca in the women's division. But in that same time, you've lost a lot of top stars. You had people like The Fiend, Braun Strowman, Dean Ambrose, who were in those main event title scenes. Orton was in the main event title scene back then. AJ Styles was treated like a top contender back then. And they've just either left the company or dropped into obscurity. And it's just a bad sign, and I'm struggling to find any motivation for why I need to be excited for like Mania coming up and why I should be intrigued by what's going on. Because at this point in time, I'm looking at WWE and going, they're not booking it for a fan like me. They're booking it for a fan who is excited for Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey and Bad Bunny and Shane McMahon. And
Which, yeah, of course,
that's
like,
not
Which
me.
is Vince.
which
It's
is
Vince.
Vince,
For
and
Vince.
which is, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I think I've said this before on the pod. It is what WrestleMania is all about, right? The biggest names, and not as opposed to the biggest stars. As long as the person catches like Firehead is peak public interest, they'll get in, right? I mean, mind you, I mean that I don't think that was the case for the mid section of the Manias from like 14 to maybe 26. I don't know. Like it's.
I would argue that if you look back at any of the Manias, none of the best ones were built on like celebrities and legends.
No, not
they were
at
all
all.
built on really, really compelling
I
storytelling.
think
Even the more
and-
recent ones, even think like 30, 31, were built on the stars of today and not on the.
I think I'd argue that
Stars
even
get
though I think I'd argue even the WrestleManias that were very celebrity focused ends up being the worst of all time. 1, 2, 11. I'm missing a Mania here. I'm missing a Mania
14,
somewhere.
but 14's all right.
Yeah, 14's okay.
It's more built around Sean and
Now,
Austin and
now, by the
Tyson.
way, just to bring up your point about AJ Styles, 29:06 was the unofficial time. AJ Styles did get the most eliminations in the Rumble match. Did get the most eliminations in the Rumble match? Of course, AJ eliminating Nakamura, Theory, Robert Roode, Rich Holland, and Sami Zayn. Oh, and combined with Omos. But yes,
But do people remember that though, or do they remember getting tossed out by?
No,
by
you only
Lost?
remember the elimination or the setup. You only remember the either like the build up to the Tito elimination or like a very crucial moment. Like again, people only remember the eliminations and what their significance means from Drew McIntyre eliminating Brock Lesnar in the 2020 Rumble to Roman Reigns eliminating The Undertaker in 2017. I know those are two recent examples. Or even just to go back a bit farther, Kane, in the 2004 Royal Rumble, suddenly getting distracted by the gong to set out that something big is coming back. Same thing. The elimination is the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
I'll be perfectly honest. Because I actually noticed Styles was getting, once he got to about 3 or 4 eliminations by the time number 10 was coming out, I was looking at that going, Styles is not winning this Rumble. There is no chance. They're doing this to try and appease. Where I thought what was coming was going to be significantly better than being tossed out by Madcap Moss, but I thought they were doing it to appease the fact he was going to get eliminated at some point by, oh, look, he got 6 eliminations and lasted really long. I just expected that to be another 15 minutes later on and maybe by someone like Kevin Owens.
Now here's the question. Assuming that Brock was still going to, obviously, the Rumble starts, Brock was going to end up winning anyways. If you have AJ in the Final Four, don't you think fans would have hijacked the show if AJ was eliminated and then eventually go into Brock?
I think the fact that Brock won was just a stupid decision from the start. And I didn't think AJ needed to win, but it shouldn't have been Brock Lesnar. The fact you made the decision to have Brock Lesnar win this Royal Rumble was already a disastrous decision because he was the only person in WWE who didn't need to win this Royal Rumble. So I look at it and go, if you had a Final Four, unless if Lesnar was eliminated, I would not have minded him being in this Rumble. But that was just never going to happen. You could have had a Final Four of, I don't know, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, and Big E. And that could have been your Final Four and let them wrestle for another 5 to 10 minutes as the Final Four. And then suddenly, this Rumble gets remembered very well because anyone would have been happy with any of those 4 winning. And they're all big enough stars to be a realistic winner.
And the Rumble needs a winner like that too, one that nobody's not expecting. Like, when was the last time we got seriously surprised with a not main event? Sorry,
arguably Drew.
Yeah, I guess Drew. Yeah, but
but with Drew though, like, as soon as he eliminated Brock, and I've had some people tell me this, as soon as he eliminated Brock after his reign of terror, a lot of people are going, "There's your Rumble winner," and then called it. To me, I think the latest surprise is Nakamura, who quietly
I thought
came
he was
out
going to win though.
I was convinced Nakamura was going to win the Rumble.
I didn't. I mean, I think at the spot that he
I
came
won
out,
money on that. I put a tenner on that before the Rumble started.
did you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I mean, he
I
came out
guess
at
I
14.
guess Orton was the biggest surprise because no one thought Orton was going to win, but in like 2017, because it was such a weird choice of winner because there wasn't a build for him at that point.
And he also doesn't really
Fair.
he's another guy that doesn't necessarily need to win a Rumble either. Like he already is at
No.
he's had two. That was his second Rumble win at that point. Orton's a made star no matter what.
Now,
as
of
well.
course, there were apparently rumors were flying, and apparently not the case anymore. There was apparently the rumors were false that Riddle was apparently going to win this Royal Rumble. I mean, you know, everybody knows I'm not too keen on Riddle, but I think at that rate, if it was the case, then sure, why not?
I
It's
think
somebody else.
It wouldn't have been my first choice, but it still would have been a better choice.
Yeah, and I mean, and with AJ, as soon as he came out at 1, I'm telling myself they're not going to go back to back years on 1. They're not going to go back to back years on 1. Let alone again, like I ask myself now the same question that I asked myself before last year's Rumble, if they will ever have another Rumble winner at 1, because if they do, then again, same amount of winners as 27, and then there's really emphasis on the number one entry and winning the Rumble.
I think you will, but it's going to be in the women's.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I think that's a great transition to the last Royal Rumble match, the Women's Royal Rumble match. Ronda Rousey coming back after 2 years, her last appearance at WrestleMania 35 at MetLife Stadium, winning from number 28 and last eliminating the champion Charlotte Flair to book her ticket to WrestleMania, and of course being the first of 2 to set the WrestleMania sign on fire and evacuate an entire section. Some other key surprises. I completely forgot that Melina was coming, and it was really cool to see her entrance again at number 2, eliminated in under a minute. Cameron, that was a nice little return for Cameron, former what was the name of that group?
Funkadactyls.
Funkadactyls, yes, with Naomi. Very, very fun time there. Ivory at number 18 with the Right to Censor theme. I freaked out. I'm having a blast, and still in character, same outfit. It's like she never left. I loved it. I love the Right to Censor moment. Obviously, I didn't think you'd get a big of a pop because again, you have so many kids there who started to watch WWE from 2015 and on, like Wolf, and would not have known what the Right to Censor theme was. So I loved it. I was a huge fan of that. Mickie James at number 20, big pop and a great reception. I'm very happy that she did, and they did end up using her Impact theme. And of course, she came out with the Impact Women's Championship. And of course, she didn't even get the traditional Rumble graphic number entry at the top left. She got a full-on regular graphic that said Impact Women's Champion. I'm like, well, Knockouts Impact Champion. I'm like, well done.
No, it said Impact
It
Women's.
said
It
Women's
should have been
Champion.
Knockouts.
Did it?
Yeah,
My bad.
It had the wrong title on it.
I feel like they did that on purpose, though.
To emphasize Impact.
No, I just feel like WWE didn't want to call their people knockouts. I feel like they wanted to call their women just the women. I personally thought that was on purpose,
Possibly.
but it could have been a mistake.
Could have been
Not
anything,
sure.
but it wasn't the actual.
No, it's not what it's actually called. Yeah.
So, Alicia Fox, nice surprise at number 21, and of course, Summer Rae, Nikki Bella, all them legends. Sarah Logan also returning as well in a one-off, an emotional video on WWE's YouTube, reuniting with Liv Morgan, which was very nice. Aside from that, Michelle McCool killing it again. I thought Michelle McCool did fine. In my opinion, a very, very underwhelming number 30 in Shayna Baszler. I could not have been more like just a big groan when Baszler came out. Because again, like I'm telling myself, well, if Rondi's out at 28, then it's got to be Bayley. And then of course, I'm completely forgetting that completely forgetting that Shayna was in the Rumble match. Comes out at 30, didn't last too long, but here we are. RJ, let's start out with you. Your thoughts on Rousey returning, winning the Rumble, and the rest of the match.
So the match itself, I think, was probably better than the men's, but
That's without question.
I didn't love it either, though, personally. I think there's a few more memorable spots, but at the end of the day, I was actually fairly excited to see Ronda Rousey. I thought that last time she was in WWE, she was very impressive. I actually really enjoyed her run. I thought that, okay, you know what, Ronda coming back could be a good thing. as soon as she hit the ring, I'm like, this is a flop. Like, I just don't care. Like, and it seems like she doesn't care either, is the problem. Like, I just don't think we're going to get that same run. And then it's like, I think that this actually might be a worse winner than Brock. Like, this is an absolute flop for me. I do not care to see her
Really?
face Becky or Charlotte. I think that she looked like she didn't care. Her punches looked worse than usual. She's
They look worse
clearly,
than Shane McMahon's.
yeah, she's clearly not in ring shape yet. And I just don't know if WWE fans are really going to buy into this. And she had her segment on Raw the next night too, and she was easily the worst part of the show. And I thought Raw was good last night, and she came out and just sucked in the main event. Her scripted promo was just bad. She didn't look like she cared. And then
And the piped-in reactions from the
the
crowd.
piped-in reactions were embarrassing. Like, it's just a flop for me. And I was actually somebody who really enjoyed her first run and did not mind thinking she might come back, but it just is not going to work. And I think it's more of a flop now that Brock's won too. I think having Ronda and Brock win is just awful. Like, I think having two, like both of those people win your rumbles is just like a shot in the face to your men's and women's division, like literally everybody else on your roster, to have Brock and Ronda win both your rumbles. So I think that's part of the reason why it's kind of magnified in that way. But it's a miss. It's a flop.
Pete.
Yeah, well, the first thing I say is number 30 isn't always a big name. And I think if you had Bayley come out of 30 and not win, it would have turned the crowd so against it.
It would have been nuts, yeah.
But I don't know. You could have had something like, if it was something like an Asuka, maybe that would have worked. But
oh my god, I forgot about Asuka.
I think people would have wanted Asuka to win at that point too, though.
Yeah,
so
probably.
I don't think. Yeah,
it's a weird one because I don't hate this as much as Brock winning. I'm actually not that bothered by Ronda winning. Like,
I agree. Same here.
Match. But I did have issues with the match. Well, the first one I have is, when did WWE themes start becoming bad again? Because over the course of both Rumbles, it would hit 0, the music would hit, and I'd have no freaking clue who was coming out. Every mid-card and not main eventers music is so generic right now.
It's pretty bad.
Because, like, since CFO Dollar left or what, but the themes have just seemed to have gone really
Aaliyah's threw me off, and I'm like, wait, who the heck is this? Oh, that's Aaliyah. And again, I thought it was it wasn't. Sorry, not Aaliyah. I thought that Alexa was gonna come out, and then I guess that's on me for not watching. There's the guy. I thought that Liv's theme was Alexa's, and I'm like, oh, it's Alexa.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Liv. Oh, my bad.
They gave Angelo Dawkins Montez Ford's entrance. It had Montez Ford's name on it. Yeah.
I mean, even like, Queen Zelina's, I'm like, oh, that's the start of her theme.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, Carmella's and stuff like that is so much worse than a theme used to be, and I don't know. It was just like, it was seen in the men's, and I was just going, the amount of times I just didn't recognize the theme when it hit was weird. The actual match, I was trying to work out why I didn't like this match, and it took me quite a while, and I realized that the biggest flaw in this match is the wrestling isn't very good. It's just a bad wrestling match. And this is when I started to notice, realistically, how much talent WWE have lost in the women's division. Because you had so many jobber legends in there. Like Melina, Alicia Fox, Summer Rae, Kelly Kelly, Brie Bella, Cameron, Ivory, Molly Holly, all just like kind of dumped in no time after doing nothing. And a lot of those are famously bad wrestlers. Like, from eras in WWE where they're known for being terrible in-ring wrestlers. And you have so many of them in this Rumble. But then you also had Sasha eliminated in like under 10 minutes. Naomi's eliminated in under like 10 minutes. Shotzi's eliminated quickly. Shayna was eliminated quickly. And you're missing your likes of your Asukas, your Alexa Bliss, your Baileys, who can help carry this match. Because realistically, this whole match was carried by Charlotte, Bianca, and Rhea. And they can't do it like 2 years in a row. They can't just rely on them to carry the whole Rumble. And you could have thrown some NXT talent in there. You could have had like Io Shirai in there, Candice LeRae. Where I don't know where Xia Li is anymore, but
oh yeah, goodness gracious.
And I know, and I really, a lot of people are like, the Mickie James thing is so good. I hate it. I genuinely hate the Mickie James thing in this Rumble. Not because of how she was treated. But because of almost the desperation, and especially when you see the other news of they reached out to like the Iconics to come
I
back,
was going to
they
say it. They
reached
reached
out to
out
Nia
Nia
to
Jax to
Jax,
come
yeah.
back, and you start to hear those things, and you start to go, "It's so desperate to try and fill up a women's rumble because you've lost that much talent, and you've lost your likes of your Iconics, you've lost the likes of your Nia Jax, but Toni Storm, Ember Moon, Ruby Soho, Mia Yim, Tegan Knox, like." They could have made this match a lot better from an in-ring standpoint as a bare minimum. So, and that was probably
the
my biggest criticism.
decisions. Yeah, the decisions of the releases. I think these past two rumbles, before we look ahead to the 2023 rumbles, is a good example of like how bad the releases hurt them. How, because I mean, I feel like you miss out on a lot of talent, like especially in the women's, like Pete said, that could have and at least enhanced it before you got to your destination of winner. I think a lot was drastically affected, and again, especially the women's, because like I feel like a year's gonna go by, we're gonna get ready for the 2023 women's rumble, and I feel like we're going to be asking ourselves the same thing: who's gonna go in? Who are they going to desperately reach out to?
To be fair, if you get some of those stars back from injury, you've at least got a bit of a chance. But the other like two things I've kind of got here is that neither rumble had a tense ending. Like the last final two, final three, Brock came in, dumped everyone. Ronda came in, dumped everyone. And that's pretty much what happened. And everyone's like, "Oh, Ronda versus Charlotte, great final two. He'll get the Roman Reigns effect." He didn't have time to build a Roman Reigns effect to Charlotte because she was gone in a minute. As soon as you get the final two, Ronda just kind of like picked her up and dumped her out, and that was the end.
Ronda quickly took care of business and sealed the win. Yep.
So it didn't have that, and I guess my other question is, over the course of these two rumbles, probably other than the first 3 or 4 minutes of the men's rumble, can you remember any like good wrestling spots? Like people remember entrances and maybe like specific eliminations, but actually where there's a period where you went, wow, that was like some good wrestling. And there wasn't any.
No. And like in the women's rumble, you don't even let Bianca, who won last year, do anything really of note either.
No.
Like I don't remember anything from that she did at all. I think a lot of the women's rumble was built around Sonya Deville.
Charlotte didn't do a lot in there either.
And then Charlotte didn't do a whole lot either. And then it's just
Rhea Ripley was probably the most dominant person in that rumble, and she didn't do that much either. So
no.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely continued the Rhea Nikki storyline before Nikki attacked Molly Holly and said there can only be one superhero. Great line, great execution on that. I gotta agree with Pete. I don't know about you, RJ, but I kind of agree with Pete on a lot of points there.
For sure. Yeah.
I think this women's rumble had so many more things that they could have done. Like I know RJ brought up the point of missed storylines in the men's. This really missed some storylines in the women's. Is you have like Ronda and Shayna in the ring, and they have a mini stare down. Give them 3 minutes. Let them just go at it for 3 minutes or so. Let them.
Yeah, it's an hour rumble. You may as well.
You have Sasha come back, enter at number 1, and she's already eliminated before Bianca Belair comes out. Why didn't you could have had that be 1 and 2, and let them properly carry the rumble, and actually have the main event of last year's Mania, a bit like they did with like Taker and Michaels in like the 2008 Rumble, where it was the final two of the 2007, and you can go, it's the first two of the 2008, and it was fantastic, of like 30 minutes of them two kind of just going at it in between all the other stuff going on. Could have done that with Sasha and Bianca. Like, there's just missed opportunities, and you like, as I said, the most storyline things in this Rumble was Sonya Deville and the Funkadactyls. Like,
yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think on that note, I feel like we've
also
said
the Sarah Logan thing was shit. I'm just going to say that as well. It was a lovely moment, but then getting eliminated in 30 seconds is just by the freaking Bella twins.
Oh yeah, that was just brutal. Like the Bella twins always just looking.
But the good thing is that Brie got her revenge on Nikki from the 2018 Royal Rumble by eliminating her sister.
Oh,
thank God.
Long-term story. If
Brie
anybody
Bella
says
was in
that
this for more
WWE
than
doesn't
twice
do
as long
long-term
as Sasha.
storytelling,
Yeah, RJ's
Yeah.
right. If anybody says they don't do it, look at that. The sister rivalry. And of course,
Yeah.
I mean, that should set up their match for WrestleMania 45.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
we'll see them.
I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to, like you said at the beginning, like everybody else other than the people who won the Rumbles in Roman Reigns are afterthoughts. Like there's no storytelling in either of the Rumbles other than just Ronda and Brock dumping everybody and winning. Just
On that
sad.
note, do I want to ask what you guys thought of out of 5, RJ?
Out of 5, I'll give it a. Oh my god, I'm usually pretty conservative with my votes in general, so I'm gonna have to go pretty bad. I'm gonna give it a 1.5.
The entire
because-
show?
Yeah, the entire show, because the only match I liked was Seth and Roman, and I didn't even love it. So yeah, no, I didn't like the show at all. Like it totally fell flat for me. I hated both winners of the Rumbles.
Pete?
I think there's nothing more symbolic of this show than the Mania sign being on fire at the end of it.
Yeah.
Just- I've
Like-
seen a lot of people online saying that this is the worst Royal Rumble event of all time, and they might not be wrong. Like as a full
I'm
show,
gonna-
not
I'm
just-
gonna
Raw
hold
was,
off on that.
Raw
as
was
a
better
full
the next
show.
night. Raw was the better 3-hour show.
I'm gonna
Like, by
hold
a
off in
lot.
saying that it's the worst Rumble ever because again, I stand strong with 1995. I somewhat stand strong with 99 as well being worse.
99 might be a worse Rumble, but I don't think it's a worse show.
Oh, it's the worst show. Oh, if you talk about the whole shows,
I would also say the men's Rumble was worse than 95. I would say 99 and 2015 are its contenders for being like the worst Rumble. I think 2006 and probably like 89 are maybe like your contenders for the worst shows. So 2006 was a garbage show. That was when Mark Henry and Kurt Angle main evented it. Like I would say the wrestling, because the actual some of the match quality I think was outside the Rumbles was quite good. So the actual in-ring aspect, probably give it like a 2. The booking aspect and the booking of the 2 Rumbles just drags it down completely. I'm giving it a 0.
I think I'm gonna go with RJ, and I think I'm gonna go with 1. I think I'm gonna go with 1 because it was. You look back, you try to be as positive as you can, but then you just can't ignore that there could have been so many significant spots, and it's the Royal Rumble. It's it's one of your biggest pay-per-views, and you gotta. I'm not even gonna count day 1 as the first pay-per-view of the year because it's just there. Like this is your starting point for and sets the tone for the year. I think even post WrestleMania, and I think it's just a rough. I think it is a bit of a rough start at the end of the day. And I forgot who said it on Twitter. I think it was somebody said it on Twitter, Sean Rossap, and I think it was Sean Rossap. And I don't know if I agree with it, but somebody tweeted, "This is where they miss Pat Patterson," and I wonder how true that is. I wonder, in terms of like storyline building in the Rumble. Important moments in the Rumble.
This is where someone needs to grab Vince and throw it, like literally sit down and let us deal with it and stop making 45 changes in the week in the build-up.
Apparently, the Rumble had about
like
the Women's Rumble had over 20 changes. Apparently, like it got rewritten 20 times. Not the winner, just the actual Rumble itself got like rewritten by Vince about 20 times
which is concerning because again, like this is not like as a talent, this is not an easy thing to do. Like you have to know when you're going to be eliminated. You have to know apparently two spots ahead and 2 spots behind in your order of elimination when it's time for you to go. You have to be alert at all times in a Rumble match. And I got to give credit to everybody. Even though these Rumbles sucked, it is not easy to be in that match, I am sure. In terms of timing,
deflate your morale. By the time you've remembered everything you meant to do, if something comes and goes, sorry, forget all that. Here's something else instead. It deflates your morale. Doing that as someone like 10 times is ridiculous.
I think apparently as well, there was also a report that WWE talent has low morale after the Royal Rumble. Like I think as well, there were reports coming out. There are reports coming out that the talent are also upset with the Rumble.
It's so surprising.
On top of this, you're on the topic of the in-ring quality not being great in the Rumbles. Did anybody else seem like there is more than just the one time that it seemed like people got eliminated a little bit earlier than they should have been? I think there was
Wait,
once or twice in the women's rumble that I felt like
uh,
somebody got that should have been knocked off.
I'm
That
still not
Sasha,
sure Melina was meant to
Sasha
go
was
that
out
early.
way too
Yeah.
early. Sasha was out early.
Yeah,
Sasha
that
was-
was
Sasha was
booked to
intentional.
happen though. I felt like there was more than one time where they were just like sloppy eliminations that I was just like, oh, was that even
I'm not
supposed
even
to
sure
happen?
Tamina's was meant to happen as well. That was one of them where Rhea stayed in and Tamina just kind of like fell off.
Yeah, like
Did the two at once type thing. So I wasn't sure that was meant to happen.
there's
I
just
also
some
just
ugly
missed
eliminations.
eliminations. Like I genuinely missed them, and because I was trying to keep track because obviously for the fantasy thing that we're doing, and I was looking back going, when did Ray get eliminated? Like,
Yeah.
when did what order that? And I was just missing like genuine eliminations from the Rumble. But I think the thing for me is like there's a lot of wrestling out there now. And at this point in time, I don't think WWE is probably for me. It's not being booked for me. It's not at that level. I'm tuned into Raw. Like I watched the replay of Raw just to see if anything was built from the Rumble, and it wasn't really enough. And the next show is a Saudi event, which I'm obviously not interested in. So it's probably going to be at my point where I'm like, at this point in time, I'm not really watching WWE until
It's fair. It's very,
I'm not
very
even sure I'm
fair.
going to watch Mania at this point unless something really hits the card and I go, yes, I need to see that because everything planned for Mania and everything I'm hearing that's planned for Mania of like a Shane McMahon match, Brock versus Roman, Rousey versus Charlotte. I'm not even interested in Becky versus Bianca because that's building on something I hated. This point, there's so much wrestling out there that, yeah, I'm not enjoying WWE at the moment, so it doesn't seem sensible to keep watching it. So you need to kind of give me something to go, yes, that's what I want to see. And you could have done that with this Rumble easily because I was already sort of tuning out. And if you have a Bailey or Asuka or Sasha or someone like that win the Rumble, if you have a Big E, AJ Styles, Drew, someone like that win the Rumble, set up something new, set up something different. You bring people. You'd have brought me back in, but this is just kind of like
Yeah, a lot of people would be
deflating.
reeled in.
And
The
I
most
think
exciting thing I was happy about on Saturday night was Will Ospreay had a UK Rev Pro match, which was apparently fantastic, and that's the most interested thing I am in Saturday night when it was the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and I think if you do exactly what you did with Brock, but you put Seth in that spot instead after the first match, I think it's a massive hit and it goes over completely perfectly. And then you don't even need to have Seth challenge Roman. Seth can still challenge for the Raw title, and it would have been a hit. And I think that the Rumble would have been a success. But he did exactly what everybody thought and did not want to happen, and that's just part of the course though nowadays.
You could have had Ronda come back earlier in the Rumble, eliminate 4 or 5 people, eliminate Charlotte even if you want to set up that match. Have her
Trying
come
to do
in,
the whole
decimate
Drew
Charlotte,
Brock moment, yeah.
and then just have her eliminated by the eventual winner later on in the Rumble. That would have also worked, and people would probably looked back on it a bit more. You've set up your Charlotte Ronda match if you want to, and if say Bianca went on to win the Rumble, you could have had that setting up Bianca versus Becky if that's the way you want to go. It's just reward the talent that's there on a weekly basis and who are putting in the effort for your show on a weekly basis, who is trying to support and do the best and are performing week in, week out, despite the booking. Reward them. Don't put it on 2 part-time UFC legends.
On that note, my friends, I think that is where we will call it a day. Great discussion. I think a lot of good points were made. And of course, we're going to see what happens as the months progress. Again, like I said, 57 days away until the first night of WrestleMania. So that'll be a story to follow. So gentlemen, this is where I say goodbye to you. Thank you so much as always. And then this is where once again we always go back to me. Yeah, I think like I said, I think RJ and Pete said it best. It was a fairly weak Rumble, and we're going to see what happens, like I said, moving forward. So again, we're going to try to regularly try to pump out content before we close this podcast. So stay tuned. I don't want to guarantee something for next week because anything can happen, but then I don't want to promise that because the last time I promised it, we went on break for 4 months. So on that note, all I can say is just that. Thank you so much for watching. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Jose Taboada, and we'll catch you real soon. Have a great one. Bye.